Good afternoon. Not kind of a cloudy, overcast day today, but that's all right. We'll keep going as we always have. Welcome to day 4 of Rehoboam and the Law of Connection. Today, we want to focus on our leadership thought that connection requires intentional effort. It isn't something that just happens. It's not something that you can make it happen just every so often. But connecting with people requires intentionality. And so we'll get into that more today. So, by way of introduction, connecting isn't something that just happens once you establish a relationship with a person. It requires an investment in another person's life. But unlike an investment that you make in a bank, your connection with others won't grow by one deposit. For a productive connection, you must make regular deposits into other people's lives. So the reality is that the truth is that the work of connecting, it never really gets done. It's never finished, because truly connecting with people is an ongoing effort. Well, because people change and go through new experiences. But all great leaders know that no job is more important than their continual investment in people. So the best thing that you can do as a leader, John Maxwell says, is to continually invest in people and grow them and help them reach their potential. So we're going to talk today about how to continually connect with people. So we were kind of coming down this path ever since Monday, to where we would spend some time offering some principles that how can we actually improve, or how can we go about this business of connecting with people. And so there are 7 items here that we'll cover today. And as usual, I'll list them for you first, and then we'll jump into each one of them one by one. So first, and this shouldn't be surprising, is that you have to connect with yourself if you're going to connect with other people. Second, share with openness and sincerity. Third, live your message. Fourth, know your audience. Fifth, communicate on the other person's level. 6, believe totally in your people. And then finally, number 7, offer direction and hope. So let's look at each one of these principles. First, you have to be able to connect with yourself. And what we mean there is that you understand your own strengths and weaknesses and where your growth opportunities are. Now, if you're unsure of that, or you want just greater awareness, there's a resource called Strengths Finders. It's a little book that you go through. It has 34 different possible areas of strength for you, and you take this inventory, and there's a code in the back of the book, and you enter that code, and then it's scored for you. That's a great resource that many people have made use of. I like it because it really identifies things that you're good at. You know, we become so accustomed to being in tune with what we're not so good at that sometimes we let loose of the things that we're good at. And I always encourage people, just in a personal way, to really focus on your strengths. Yes, there are some weaknesses that we need to address, and we spoke earlier, especially about the character weaknesses. We dealt with that last week. But in terms of more talent kinds of things, some of those kind of weaknesses we might have to address ourselves, but others we might have someone else come alongside of us that's a strength of theirs. And so what we really want to do is not only know our own strengths and play to those, but help people discover theirs and help them to play to their strengths. Now, on a different note, if you can develop and maintain a positive self-image, what will happen? People will feel more secure around you. So you think about it, and maybe go back into your own personal experience. If you're around someone who's very, their self-image is very low, they give off a vibe of insecurity. And when you're around an insecure person, it can make you feel that way too. And so just make note of that. And that's all we need to share about that. But that's certainly the principle that people will generally feel more secure around a person who has a positive self-image. So let's move on. Sharing with openness and sincerity. So the question here is, are you willing to let people in and see the real you? Not the fake you, not the public you, not the you that you want people to see, but the real one. Are you able to be vulnerable with others? Now, to be sure, you've got to use wisdom and discretion. You can't be vulnerable to everybody in every situation. So we understand that. But this issue of vulnerability, what it does, it kind of levels the playing field. And then the other person can relate to you in a better way than if you came across like, I never have any issues, I never have any challenges, life is always good, and I just never encounter any problems, and those that I encounter, I quickly overcome. Well, who can relate to that kind of a story? And so when we, with wisdom and discretion, open ourselves up and let people see the real us, they're going to most likely return in kind that same vulnerability. And that's where a real connection can happen. Not even so much when things are always going good, but even when, and especially when things maybe aren't going quite so good, and when you're facing challenges and problems, because we all face challenges and problems. And so be wise about it, but at the same time, share with openness and sincerity. Okay, number 3 then, and this is common sense, really all of these are, live your message. Now what I mean by that is that the very essence of leadership means leaders go first. So that means you don't ask your employees to stay late if you're not willing to stay late. You set the example. A very, very good way to short circuit your leadership and cause resentment instead of respect is to demand things of people that follow you that you are unwilling to do yourself. And so by contrast, when your words and your actions are in alignment with each other, then we're talking integrity. Now, what happens when you are full of integrity? Well, people will trust you. Makes sense, doesn't it? So go first. Make sure that you're not overly asking people to do things that you are not willing to do, and make sure there's alignment between your words, what you say, and what you do. There we go. Okay. So right now we've kind of looked at things from the perspective of the leader. So now we're going to turn it around just a little bit and kind of flip the switch and look at it from the perspective of the audience. And so the question here under knowing your audience is this: do you understand the needs of your people? So let's look at Rehoboam, who we've been looking at all week. Consider how much it cost him, because number one, he was unaware of, and even more damaging, was totally unconcerned with his people's needs. And as a direct result of that, they were really unconcerned with his welfare, and they left. And so how very important it is to know where your people are coming from, know what excites them, know what makes them afraid or apprehensive or anxious. When you know those things, then you can set about the business of addressing them, and thereby they win, and so do you. Going along with this idea of knowing your audience, there's also the issue of being able to communicate with them in a way that will enhance your relationship with them. Perhaps one of the biggest mistakes in terms of communication that any leader can make is to come across as condescending to people that you follow. Now, you might, in many cases, have more knowledge because you are exposed to more, but you can't go around treating people like they're peons or they're somehow less. When you speak to people in a condescending way, well, think about it when you've been spoken to like that. Don't you resent it? I know I certainly do, and I think most people do as well. And so make sure you never speak to people that way. Incidentally, that's exactly what Rehoboam did. You know, when he said, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Even when he said, go away, and when I'm ready, I'll let you know what my decision is. So let's flip that around. If we're not wanting to be condescending, and obviously we're not, then what's the right way to go? Well, how about speaking to people as friends? That kind of means as equals. That's how they'll respect you. You don't talk down to them, you talk with them. And just using two words, the first word at and the second word with. If you're talking at somebody, they're probably going to feel like they're being treated in a condescending way. But if you speak with them, then you're valuing them, and they're catching that, and they're recognizing that you are valuing them. So number 6 then, oh, I like this one. Believe totally in your people. So one of the best ways that you can demonstrate that belief, because it's one thing to have it in your head, but it's got to be worked out. And most importantly, it's the people that have to believe that you believe in them. So how do you do that? You do everything you possibly can to set them up to succeed. You align their job with their talents, what they're good at. Of course, that presupposes that you know what they're good at. And you do everything you can to set them up for success. Because everyone loves that feeling of, hey, I did this and I succeeded. And your role in facilitating that is very, very rewarding for you as well. And so that intentional effort on your part will never be in vain. It will always be appreciated, and people will love you for it. So set people up for success. They'll be encouraged, they'll be motivated, they'll be loyal, and it allows you to trust them and them to trust you. All right. We've gone through 6 items now, but we got one more left. And that is offer direction and hope. You ever been around a leader who was always dour, who was always complaining or talking about how the future was going to be worse than the present, let alone the past? How motivated are you to follow them when everything they say depresses you and makes you want to quit? On the other hand, think of people who inspire you, who bring out the best in you, who really envision a future that looks better than today or yesterday. Aren't you naturally drawn to those kind of people? I know I am. And so that's what we want to be for the people that we lead. Now, we have to be realistic. We can't do pie in the sky kind of stuff that has no possibility of being actualized. So I'm not going there. But what I am talking about is that when we've expressed ourselves to them, when we've shown that we believe in them, when we've treated them by the way we communicate, all these other points that we've just made, and then we offer them hope. Because I believe that people everywhere are looking for hope. They're looking for a future. And if we're wise, and we're courageous, we can help them get there. I believe that's one of the main aspects of being in leadership, is that we point people in a better direction than when they've gone before. And so here's what we need to do in this case. When we are communicating with our people, obviously some of that will be verbal and some of it will be written. In either case, we always want to make sure that we demonstrate a positive attitude, because when we do that, they will be encouraged. And so how important it is to always be cheerful, to greet them, and it will go well with them. It'll go well with us. So people want direction. I've said before, and maybe John Maxwell has also said, people do not want to be managed, but they do want to be led. They want to be directed in a specific direction that will produce good results. And so when we do that, we can inspire them to have hope. Because it's good if we have hope. In fact, we have to have hope as leaders. But you know what's really awesome? It's when our people catch it and they want to run with it. And so offer direction, offer hope in all of your communication, verbal and written. Well, we've gone through a lot today, I know, but that's how we do it here. We just kind of start and keep on going. But we're ready to conclude our time today. So John Maxwell writes in our book, of course, you know it by now, 21 Most Powerful Minutes in a Leader's Day. This is on pages 164, 165. The ability to connect with people is essential if you want strong, successful leadership. The more time you contribute to establishing and strengthening your connection with people, the more opportunities you have to lead. And I would just say anecdotally myself, and this is through observation, that the higher you go up on the leadership food chain, if we want to call it that, the more important it is to connect with people. It becomes even more a priority because you will spend most of your time doing just that, or things that will require you to be able to connect with people. And so this skill, this attribute, becomes even more important the higher up you go on the organizational chart. And so take these words from John to heart. The more time you contribute to establishing and strengthening your connection with people, the more opportunities you'll have to lead. That brings us to our question for today. Somewhat like yesterday, so you have to listen carefully to differentiate between yesterday's and today's, but it goes like this. In what areas do you need to improve your connection with others? So you might think about these 7 principles that we mentioned earlier and kind of lay that out as like a checklist. And you could, any one of those that you might want to review and say, okay, how am I doing here? How am I doing there? How am I doing there? And then get creative and make it fun and enjoyable to say, well, what can I do to ramp it up even more? So again, even if you're good at this, why settle for good if you can be great? So don't stop. Don't say, okay, I've reached a certain level and I'm good enough with that. But let's continue to prioritize connecting with people, because at the end of the day, people are always our most important resource, our most important asset as leaders. And so we want to take care of them, and we want to lift them up. We want to encourage them. They're not resources to be used and then thrown away when we don't have any use for them again. But no, there are people who have real needs, real opportunities, real aspirations. And when we can help people tap into those aspirations, oh, what an awesome job we'll have when we get that opportunity to help people tie in their aspirations and help them grow and help them achieve their goals. And so, as always, we always conclude our time in every afternoon by saying that especially on Thursdays, well, Friday, Good Friday tomorrow. So we certainly pray God's blessing in a special way to remember Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, and what a special day that is. But Friday, of course, being what it is, then we'll be back here at 1:30 instead of 3:30, and we look forward to seeing you then. So God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you back tomorrow at 1:30.